you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hey folks, it's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are only things that makes it official. Personally, for me, I'm just here for the brain bleed. Welcome to the show, folks. As always, for 16 years and 24 episodes, we bring in the Chris Voss Show because we just had nothing better to do. And we thought, you know what? Why don't we uplift the world? Why don't we make the world smarter? Why don't we share wonderful ideas on the show? And you can too. Go to Goodreads.com, refer your family, friends, and relatives /Chris Voss, and Facebook.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss, one of the TikTok and all those crazy places on the internet. Today we're talking to a fine young lady where her new book has just come out May 27th, 2025. It is entitled Rebooting Tech Culture: How to Ignite Innovation and Build Organizations Where Everyone Can Thrive. Telle Whitney is joining us on the show today. We're going to get into it with her. She's a senior executive leader, an entrepreneur, and is a recognized advocate and expert on women and technology. She has over 30 years of leadership experience and was named one of the Fast Company's most influential women in technology. She's a frequent speaker on the topic of women in technology. She is an accomplished technologist who spent 20 years in the semiconductor industry in Silicon Valley. She has been called a pioneer for the promotion of women's technologists and one of the most inspirational leaders I've ever known. So that's a great quote and endorsement there. So give us, Telle, give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here, Chris, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm easily available on the internet. If you go to tellewhitney.com, there's a direct link to my book. I also have a LinkedIn presence, and I post a lot on LinkedIn.
So give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside your new book.
Okay, well, I'm a computer scientist, and I have worked for the last 20 years. I led an organization called the Anita Borg Institute. We had a conference called the Grace Hopper Celebration, and it was all, and there I met so many young women that were starting out on their technology journey. And I could see the passion in their eyes as they tried to think about contributing to the technology that's changing our lives. And I also saw that fire go out often after about 5 years in the tech industry. And so that's what led me to write the book.
Is the book kind of centered or targeted towards women, or just everybody in the tech field?
It's for everybody. I mean, as I spent 20 years of my career bringing more women into technology, but really what you want is men, women, everyone to come together and create cultures where innovation and inclusion thrive.
Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of that under attack right now, the DEI situation, but having inclusion where everybody feels like they have a seat at the table and everybody, or at least, whatever they've earned in merit, they have a function and feel like they're making a difference. People lead, as you probably know, with leaders, people leave workplaces over poor leadership. So if they can't find it, they're going to do it. What are some of the issues that you see in tech culture that need to be rebooted that you talk about in your book? I mean, I had one friend, I forget his name, but he wrote a book about some of the tech bro culture and some of the tech culture that was kind of toxic in Silicon Valley, having like alcohol carts wander around during the day and sexual harassment problems. So what are the things that you address in your book that is kind of toxic there?
Yes, well, I came to Silicon Valley many years ago, and I love being here. And what's really positively unique about Silicon Valley is the entrepreneur culture, the feeling like you can do anything. But I as part of the book, I interviewed 50 people, and I saw the difference between people who led cultures that were very inclusive, but also focused on innovation, and those that weren't. So a lot of what you see in the book is what about 50 executives who I talked to who are making a difference, people that you would know who they are, talking about how they do it differently. The book is centered around the six C's, and we can talk more about that later, but it's creativity, courage, confidence, curiosity, communication, and community. And I observe that leaders that really want to have a truly innovative but inclusive culture allow people to speak their mind, who feel heard, they feel respected, and they feel like they're being listened to.
Yeah. And that seems to be a core tenet that what a lot of employees want nowadays. They want, they want to feel respected. They want to feel cared for. And I think that's kind of a human condition, as it were, in and of itself. Right. We all kind of want to feel like we're respected and we have a say and we have input and we make a difference in our life and we're contributing sometimes to some things better. So in the book, you talk about how to ignite the innovation where everyone can thrive. What are some techniques you advise in the book that leaders can institute?
Well, there's quite a few different stories. Let me start with creativity, because if you don't have a truly creative culture, then the products that you're creating are just not going to make a difference in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And one example I talk about in the book is at AMD. I come from the semiconductor industry, and AMD was always second place for so many years. And they hired a new CEO, Lisa Su, and she brought on somebody named Mark Papermaster, and together they turned around the culture. This was really a turnaround, and they simplified the overall way that they approach building the product, and in a few years they really created a new product, and that changed the market, and they are considered number one, at least in some markets today. So that's an example of how the culture actually drove the product, which drove the business.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. And having a healthy culture is real important. I know I've talked about this ad nauseum on the show, but years ago, when I was young, before I got my big company started, I read Peter Senge's I want to say Thriving Chaos, but that's Tom Peters. Peter Senge's The Fifth Discipline, which basically talks about establishing a learning organization. And so I focused on building my future companies initially with that culture of having a learning organization. One of our rules was the only stupid question is the unasked question. So please ask the questions. The more educated our employees were, the more likely it was that everybody would do fine, and no one would break a $30,000 machine, which they eventually did. Someone actually did, who slept through freaking the orientation and training, And so we try to have that culture. I've always been known to over-explain to my employees, and why when we ask a question, do you explain why you came to that conclusion, the history behind it? And I'm like, because if you understand how we built it, you might be able to innovate it. And I want you to be transparent. I want you to have a working knowledge of why it's built that way. And we also want you to feel free to come to us and go, hey, I think I have some better ideas on how this can be done. Because I know, I learned a long time ago being a CEO, probably the first couple of years in, that I was not the purveyor of every great idea. And I learned that the hard way financially. So, being able to get input and have your team feel like there's a culture there where what they say can matter and make a difference is really important.
Well, yeah, what you said, Chris, is so important. And I think that many leaders don't actually get this. First of all, being open to new ideas. So you're setting up structures where people feel like they can contribute to innovate, and not just the final product, but also the process by which you get there. There's many ways that the people who are working on the front lines can suggest innovations that really make a difference. The other thing that I found that was interesting as I researched my book is that as companies grow, they become more of a command and control, and that does not create a creative environment, whereas what you just described often does.
Yeah. It's really just it's really a difference of, I've seen environments where if you say maybe you slept through something, the training or a meeting or whatever, and you're like, oh crap, I know I'm not up to speed on this given thing that I'm supposed to be doing, and I really have questions. But in our culture, if we're asked questions, we're kind of treated like a high school hazing thing where everyone's going to make fun of me or call me stupid, or my boss is going to, I have bosses that do that. They have a presupposition towards you, and no matter what you do that's good, they'll never see the good. But every time you make a mistake, oh boy, do they make a note of it and let you know that they know. And so you can make 50 million right choices, but it's almost, I don't know, sometimes I think they just want you to fail or they're sick of you.
Well, I just want to point out that failure is actually one of the most important lessons that you can learn.
Yeah.
I mean, shutting people down when they've made a mistake, it just doesn't help anybody, including them. But failure is really often how we learned a real lesson, and we can integrate those lessons into a future decision.
Yeah. And if people don't feel like it's an environment, I've seen high school environments where they're, it's just whoever can kiss ass on the boss the best, and it's a popularity contest, and like no one's really doing any work. And usually the people who are doing the real work are the people who they're the good workers, but they're the ones who usually get punished and left out. It's an interesting thing. So how did you develop is it the 6 C's, I believe?
6 C's, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did you develop these when you were studying this and researching it?
Well, as I prepared to write the book, I had been talking to especially students for quite some time on what I called the 5 C's. I added a 6th of communities, and it was geared towards what can I do differently to have the career of my dreams. But as I looked more into what does success look like, it's often the culture. I mean, if you are working in a place where your opinion is respected and where you can influence the outcomes, that makes a very powerful engagement with you and with all of your peers. And I also observed that there was a real difference between leaders who had a culture that was welcoming and those that did not. And so I asked them. I started out by talking to about 50 people. 36 of them were engineering executives. And I listened to and these were people who I knew personally and who were doing great things at their company. And so that's how I approached it.
So give us a little history on you. How did you grow up? How did you get influenced into this field, talking about these issues and everything else? Tell us kind of a little bit about your journey.
Okay, well, I'm from Salt Lake City. My family lives in Salt Lake City. And I went to the University of Utah for my undergraduate. And to be honest, I had no idea what I wanted to do. This was a long time ago. But the University of Utah was one of the few early schools that had a computer science degree. So I got my bachelor's at University of Utah, and then I went to Caltech for my PhD. And it was, first of all, I loved technology. I just loved what I was doing. And I was around some of the most brilliant minds of the planet, people who were who today, their technology is what we use every day. But I also, at times, didn't feel like I belonged. And so I came to Silicon Valley and I created a community. So the first thing I did was create my own community that allowed me to work in the semiconductor field, but also had people I could talk to. In 2002, I took over the Anita Borg Institute, which is a nonprofit organization to bring more women into technology. And the reason I took it over, Chris, was because the founder and one of my best friends was dying. She had brain cancer. Oh, no. And so she had started this nonprofit, but then could not see it through. And I was very ambivalent about leaving, full-time technology, but I took over this nonprofit. I grew it to when I stepped down in 2017. We had 50,000 people, 30,000 people coming to the Grace Hopper celebration. Mm-hmm. We had a pretty significant budget, and so I was proud. I'm an entrepreneur. I did it first in the semiconductor, and then I did it with a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations. And so when did you, what kind of drove you to want to write the book? What was the proponent behind that? Was there any you were seeing things that really need to get fixed there?
Well, so through my work at the Anita Borg Institute, I had the opportunity to meet all these young students, and they were so excited. They just felt like this was where the future was, and their eyes were on fire. And then I watched them, and I would watch the fire die in their eyes. About 5 years after they joined these toxic workplaces that you were talking about a few minutes ago. And so I saw the real differences between places that were really welcoming and soliciting ideas and listening, as you described in your own company, and those that it was just do what I tell you. I don't want to hear from you. And so I just felt like we should hear the stories from the people who were doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, these are important aspects of a business. And when you look at what the cost is to hire employees now, employees leave if they don't find good leadership, if they don't find that they have a say or an input, or if they're just ignored or disrespected. I mean, it's a big deal for them, right?
And I also saw that as companies embraced what was called DEI, it was a checkbox. It was really, let's go out and hire all these people. But once again, they were not having all these people that they'd gone all this trouble to hire really integrated into their products and, leadership, the product leadership. And that's what is the key to doing it differently.
It's all about leadership. Leadership's really important. And of course you got to have some followers too to lead, but leadership's really important because it sets the tone. It's the I think there's a reference they have from the military, the man on the white horse. So you can say woman too, but it's the one that people look up to. They look to lead and have the vision and everything else. And, so many companies nowadays, they try and rule by fiat via the PR department. Like, we're going to be a moral company. We're going to do good. We care about our employees, love our employees. Our employees are family. And 10,000 you fired tomorrow. You're like, wait, it's not really, I don't really think you understand how this caring about employees and family work. Do you do that at Thanksgiving with your family, or what's going on? You see, people behaving, CEOs or boards or companies generally being led and behaving in a way, finally Google, if you remember, had to give up their "don't be evil" thing because they just got too evil. And they're like, we really should do something about this because this is a bad look for us to be hypocrites. So, they're like, maybe we should stop we should take that down. And I guess the new mantra is, I don't know, but it certainly is don't be evil.
Well, it was great that they said that, but I do know that they got rid of it because I assume because as they got really large, it was too hard to really be able to say that.
We got too large to not be evil anymore. That's what I should have told my mom when I was a child. I was like, Mom, you told me not to lie and not to spill the milk all over the floor, but it was fun and I'm large enough to where it's okay to be evil. Wonder how that would have gone on.
Well, I've known Google. I live in Silicon Valley, and so I've known Google. They were a big supporter of our work for many years, and so I've watched them grow significantly. And I do think that leadership becomes increasingly complex when you become large, but I was sad that they got rid of the "don't be evil."
Yeah. Well, they're probably up to something, so, I'm just teasing you, Google. Don't shut off my Gmail. fuckers. But no, I mean, I thought it was interesting, and maybe that's a lesson to business people that people should take in a book. Maybe don't be hypocrites, or number two, like know that you're eventually going to be a hypocrite. So try not to have this. What's that called? Where you try and paint yourself as a saint and you're really not. I don't know. Jesus. Anyway, so give us your final pitch out to people to order up the book as we go out and all that good stuff.
Well, if you want to think about innovation, and I do think that, technology innovation is changing our world. Every place that we go, technology is fundamentally changing what we do. And we want the best and the brightest minds to be part of that technology revolution. And my book, The 60s, can help you get there. And it's important.
Mm-hmm. And we need all the smartness we can get. Give us your .coms as we go out so people can find you on the interwebs.
Okay, so my webpage is Telle Whitney, Tellewhitney.com, and the book is listed there. I'm also fairly active on LinkedIn, so you can easily find me on LinkedIn, and I have a unique enough name that it's really easy to find me.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. This has been very enlightening and also thought-provoking. So we'll put it in the bag and have people order the book. It's called Rebooting Tech Culture, How to Ignite Innovation and Build Organizations Where Everyone Can Thrive. Thanks, Telle, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Chris, for the invitation.
Thank you. And thanks to our audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss1 on the TikTok and all this crazy place on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time. And that should happen.